Hey, what is going on, you guys? JPB Productions here, and today I'm going to be reviewing episode 5 of Survivor 43. So this episode, I liked it. It was interesting. We had a blindside with Gio. He was shocked. He was very, very surprised. Yeah, Coco lost for the second time. They were doing really, really well in individual immunity challenges, and then they lost back-to-back losses. So Cassidy got the second most votes at Tribal. I think Cassidy honestly could win this game now. I'm really starting to see it. She's getting this really interesting under the radar edit. I'm really, really, really starting to think your winner is Cassidy or it's Sammy. That's really what it feels like as of right now. Gio ended up going home. 3-2 vote. Gio had that super long 2.5 minute confessional earlier on when they found the almond in the tree with Ryan. So I was honestly thinking that Gio was maybe poised for a longer run. He's not going to be super relevant early on, but he's going to get more content later. That's what I was honestly thinking was happening. But that ended up not being the case. Gio ended up going home tonight, or not tonight. Wednesday night. Gio. He seemed like one of the bigger characters of this season leading up to this point. So to see him go home this early, a bit surprising. But Lindsay also seemed to have, your typical making it far potential winners at it, and she went home right before this. So, anything can happen. So I'll talk a little bit about this episode. We honestly didn't get much content before the immunity challenge. I thought that was interesting. It really did dive very, very quickly into the immunity challenge, and we got a lot of content post challenge with the Coco tribe. But before the immunity challenge, there was not much content. There wasn't a bunch of stuff that was super relevant in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, we ended up having us go straight into the immunity challenge pretty quickly. With that being said, we hop into the immunity challenge. Coco ends up losing again. They were doing really well in challenges, but the other two tribes, they helped each other out, and then Coco lost one time, and then they lost again, making things a lot more even now. I would have never thought that the Baka tribe would have the most numbers going into the merge, but that's what we're seeing. So, yeah. So we ended up having the immunity challenge. Coco lost, and then we had the Summit Island where who went? Jesse went, Gio went, and then I think Janine was the other person. So Janine and Jesse lost their votes, and then Gio got the knowledge is power advantage. Now in Survivor 41 and 42, we got two really cool moments when these advantages were used. We have Xander being at risk of losing his idol to Liana, and then he ended up giving it to Tiffany prior, and we got that huge, amazing flashback. Mike was at risk of losing his idol, and then he gives his idol to Omar, and then we got that cool flashback. So, they lead to some really cool moments, but a lot of people think it's an overpowered advantage. So, to see Gio find it, go home with it, and it maybe won't go back into circulation, I'm kind of okay with that. I am, even though it makes good TV. It's a good advantage from a television standpoint. So we ended up seeing Gio get that advantage, and it ended up not really impacting much. And we saw with the Tribal Council. So I'll talk a little bit about after the immunity challenge, because before the immunity challenge, we didn't get much content that was super relevant. I'm trying to think right now of anything that I felt was super worthy or worth mentioning, but it didn't really seem to me like there was much. Janine got the idol. So she was able to activate that. She now has a full-fledged idol. So we have, by the way, production probably thought that getting all those beads would be way harder than it ended up being. All three people were able to do it more easily than I think the production thought that they would. But yeah, Janine has an idol now, Carla has an idol now, and Cody has an idol now. So there's that. It seemed to me like Janine honestly made it look kind of easy. Those three now have idols. And I'm interested to see how that's going to play out going into the merge. So, yeah, other than Janine having an idol, I don't really know what else there is to really cover that happened before the immunity challenge. So I'll just talk right after the immunity challenge. Right after the immunity challenge, we have Ryan looking dumb in the edit. So immediately once Ryan was in that confessional and he was talking about how I'm in control. I'm on top. I'm in numbers. When we got that confessional, I actually thought Ryan was going to go home. I was like, oh god, this does not look very good for Ryan. He's getting a terrible edit. What's going on? I honestly at that point thought it was going to be Ryan. But no, it ended up being Gio, who had a bit stronger of an edit, and Ryan's someone who Ryan's not winning this game. I mean, Dwight is not winning after the first episode that we saw. Ryan's not winning this game. He's not. Because the editors just made him look so dumb for no reason in this episode. So they didn't really have to do that, even though he did vote incorrectly. So he had a really bad episode, where he was like on the wrong side of the vote, and we kind of had James and Carla are playing pretty well. They were in the middle of the Lindsay vote, and they continue to be in the middle here, where Cassidy was at the mercy of them. And then Gio and Ryan, without knowing it, were at the mercy of them. And that cockiness was one of the reasons why Gio went home. I mean, Cassidy knew that she was on the line, knew that she was in a bad spot. And a lot of the time in Survivor, paranoia is a better strategy to exploit than exploiting cockiness. And we kind of saw that tonight. I mean, I think that there was no specifically obvious reason why Cassidy needed to go. I know that. I know that there wasn't a super obvious reason for her to go, but I do think that her knowing that she was on the line and being petrified, whereas the other two weren't petrified, they just assumed that it was going to be Cassidy. Like, easy peasy. Going to be Cassidy. 5th boot of Survivor 43. Yep. Ryan seemed very confident. Gio seemed very confident. Both of them seemed confident. I don't know which one felt more confident. Whereas Cassidy knew that, like, those two are writing down my name. They're not telling me anything. Like, they're going to vote for me tonight. So she put in the groundwork. She put in the work. She knew she needed to hustle if she wanted to stay in the game. And Cassidy ended up coming out of this episode with 2 votes, still looking pretty good in the edit. She got 2 votes, and you never want to get votes in Survivor. But she ended up looking pretty good in the edit. I mean, they made her look pretty positive. So I still think that she's in contention to win. I really do believe that. So I still have faith in her. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. There was no shot in the dark play. It felt like it was blindside. It was like probably the biggest blindside so far of the season. Gio did not expect that. He was shocked. He really did not expect that. So yeah, we ended up having James and Carla look like the swing votes here, and they looked pretty good in this episode. So I'm going to talk a little bit about everybody. So Noelle had a very quiet episode. And like I said, they rushed things. I forgot to say this. They didn't even go to Vessi. Vessi was invisible in the edit in this episode. That's why I wasn't sure what the heck to say before the challenge, because not much happened during the challenge. We didn't even cut to Vessi. But yeah, Noelle, my opinion on her doesn't really change on anything. I think it's really, really cool and inspiring seeing her run these challenges with a prosthetic limb and it barely even be noticeable that she has a prosthetic limb. Like, I think she's doing phenomenal in that vein, very inspirational, and I think that she's someone who... It's cool seeing her out there. I think that having people with disabilities and proving, hey, you can have a disability and you can still thrive in your life and there's nothing that you can't do, and don't let it be a limitation. Because when she lost her leg in that moped accident, she was probably devastated. Not probably. Of course she was devastated. But she's able to rebound from that, and she's able to do great things with her life. Everyone should live by that mantra. I think it's great to see. Ryan had a really terrible episode. He looked really bad in the edit. And I think he's probably going to go home pretty soon, actually. Because, I mean, they're not making us look like we're supposed to root for him. He looks like someone that they're going to think is a physical threat. I think he's probably going to go home. Cassidy, I think, could easily win the game. She had got 2 votes. I do not think that matters. She is in a very, very good spot. Edit-wise, position-wise, she's going to get underestimated. I think Cassidy has a good shot at this game. Owen is someone who I think is going to go home mid-merge. He's someone who I would have expected them to invest a little bit more in the edit and the pre-merge if he was actually going to potentially win the game. But I mean, his edit also could hit a massive spike. I mean, it could go up, and if that's the case, like, yeah, because I could see the Owen win emerging. It's like, it's possible, but I don't think so. Ellie is going to go home soon, I think. I think she's someone who the editors apparently don't want us particularly to root for. Which, I mean, in the first episode, it felt like we were supposed to root for her, and like she was genuinely a winner contender. But it seems to me, based off of what we've seen as of late, that we're not supposed to root for her and Janine. I actually think Janine is going to go home with an idol in her pocket, which we'll talk about that later. But I think that idol that she found, she's going to go home with it in pocket based off of the edit that we're seeing. So we'll see. Sammy, I think Sammy could win. If Sammy wins, it's one of the more obvious winners edit. Whereas I think if Cassidy wins, I think the Edgic community has kind of been able to see that she probably has the strongest chance of winning at this point. But I think that the editors think that they're doing a good job. And if Cassidy does win the game, like, props editors, like, you guys did a good job at hiding it. But I think that Cassidy probably has the best chance of winning. Whereas if it's more of a typical winner's edit rather than a hidden winner's edit, then I think Sammy's probably going to be your winner. Actually, not even basing it off of positioning at all. Sammy's a really smart guy. He's 19. I forget that he's 19. He's a pet cremator. He's a part-time business owner. He's got a lot of life experience, and he's really has a good knack for the game. He knows how to approach certain situations, and he's someone that, based off of his positioning, he's doing well. He is, but I think it's more so off of the edit that he's getting that makes me think that he's in a good spot in this game. Mike Gabler. Mike Gabler hasn't really changed character-wise, really, as of late. But I love Gabler. I think he's a very interesting character. I think he's going to be in this game for a while. I don't know if he's actually going to be a threat to win. He could be potentially an FTC loser, but he also could just magically be this way better player. I mean, like I said a long time ago in one of my older videos, I think I said this in either, it might have been my predictions, where I said Gabler in the preview of the season, they clipped out to him into his face for 2 seconds, a full 2 Mississippis. We saw a lot of him in that preview, and maybe that means that he's going to have a rebound, he's going to come back from this, and he's going to make it super far in the game, and he's going to have a good shot at this. So I think that Gabler is someone who definitely could make it far in the game and could have, maybe, he's not going to win. He's not going to win, but I think finale night, he could absolutely make it to that point. Because we're getting a lot of positive content from him, and I think that's a very good sign. He's a very interesting character. I think I'm excited to see what else he does in the game. And we saw in that very first episode, he said, I deserve to be at risk, so I'm going to use my shot in the dark. That's phenomenal television. When someone says they're going to do something that makes absolutely no sense, and you put those people on the island to mess up the game because they're not going to do the optimal thing, it's great television. And I think that seeing Gabler out there is really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else he does out there. He's not going to win the game. I think he's right on up there with... I think Janine is the only person on the cast where I'm okay, no way that she's going to win the game, just based off of the edit that we've seen, mixed in with the editors not really making it seem like in any way, shape, or form we're supposed to root for her. But I think Gabler is the next person in line where his edit's a character, but he's not getting a winner's edit. He's not going to win the game. That would be crazy if he did, but he's not going to win the game, although I would love to see it. I really hope Gabler wins the game. That would be iconic. So, yeah, that'd be so great. So awesome. Gabler, I would love to see a Gabler win. So next up we have Dwight. Dwight had a really terrible first episode. What's funny is he did play pretty well on that Vessi tribe. I mean, after that first episode, we're oh no, he's going to be this dodo bird of a player. But he survived 2 tribals without really being at risk. And if they went to another tribal council, honestly, he might have been fine. Because what would have happened then? What maybe he sides with Noelle. Noelle uses the steal a vote, and then it's, instead of it being 2-2 numbers, it's 3-1 numbers, and they put 2 votes on Cody, 1 vote on Jesse, and then they steal maybe Cody's vote. Jesse votes for Noelle, and then Cody whips out his idol. It's a tie between Jesse and Noelle, and then Dwight casts the sole vote, completely safe, without being safe, and then on the revote, he just casts a sole vote and votes Jesse out, which Jesse's gotten a phenomenal edit, and it is possible if Vessi lost another challenge, Jesse would have gone home, because now that they never lost again, it was one of the reasons why I assumed they wouldn't lose again, because I was oh no, Jesse could potentially be in danger. Based off of the edit that we're seeing, obviously he can't go pre-merge. There's no way. And that was just because they never lost again. I think if Vessi had lost one more time, Jesse probably would have been toast. So that explains the edit, and it explains how he's definitely a finale player. But I think Dwight is someone who's probably going to go home soon, because it doesn't seem like they're trying to invest too much in him based off of the edit that we're seeing. So I think he's probably just going to go home kind of just randomly earlier on in the merge. Maybe he'll make mid-merge. I don't know. We'll see. Cody, amazing character. He was invisible in this episode. Invisible, invisible, invisible. The entire Vessi tribe was invisible. I didn't like it. Cody is a great character. What I've heard through the grapevine is that Cody is the fan favorite right now. He's the one that fans are like, he's the one that like people are going up to Jeff Probst and saying like, that Cody guy, I like him. He's gold. He's a very unique character. We've had a lot of crazy people on the show. Obviously, if you're crazy, I think that that's a good trait to have. You want to be weird in the casting process. If you're normal, then they've seen you before. But if you're weird, then you have a better chance of getting cast. I think Cody is weird, and I think that that's what ultimately got his foot in the door with casting. Great character. I've loved watching him on this season. He's just larger than life. He's just out there to have a good time, and people are seriously underestimating him, having that knowledge and thinking that he's not taking the game seriously. He wants to win. He wants to win the $1 million. He had his confessional how he really wants to win the $1 million. He really needs the $1 million, and he's already spent some of it. I mean, that's a winner's quote. Maybe Cody could still win the game. Actually, not even ruling it out. His edit practically proves that he's a long gamer, and maybe he just cuts all the people that strategically play better than him. So Cody, I'm not ruling him out as a winner candidate. I think he's top 5 most likely to win right now. I genuinely believe that. Jesse, Jesse I don't think can win. I think he's going to be a finale player for sure, but I don't think he can win. His edit's a little bit too perfect. I see him as an FTC loser or as like one of the finale boots. So that's just kind of how I see him. Also another really bad sign in this episode. Yeah, sure, Vessi may have just been boring tonight. Maybe the trajectory of this episode, there was nothing from Jesse or anybody on Vessi that we really needed, like no real content that was mandatory, that was entertaining enough to make the edit. However, we did get a little bit of content from Jesse because it was mandatory. I think it's a bit of a bad sign that nobody on Vessi got content. And that really makes me think that the winner of this season is from Coco or it's Sammy. Still think that. Still really makes me like, I think if I said, Cassidy probably has a better chance than Carla of winning realistically at this point. But if Carla won, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I just think that Cassidy, Sammy, or Carla winning is the only thing I could see happening at this point. Cody winning, based off the edit that we're seeing, maybe. But his character just makes me think that it won't happen. And then Jesse's edit is just a little bit too perfect. So I just have a hard time seeing it. And James, they haven't invested enough in him where he potentially win. And then there's a few other people that maybe could have a chance. Owen maybe is up there. But yeah, I don't particularly think that it's the most likely thing to happen. Carla has gotten a phenomenal edit. A little bit too perfect. She could potentially be the Omar of the season, where the winner of the season makes a big move on her at final 6 or 5, and then she just goes home right before the end. I think that's actually what's probably going to happen with Carla. Big jury threat, just won't make it to the end. I think she's going to be a big character on the season. Who knows? Maybe the editors got lucky this season, and it was really easy for the winner to be hyped up strongly, and giving her a good amount of content because she played a very good game early on and it continued to merge and she ends up winning the game. That would be super cool. It doesn't happen as much anymore. Erica was a very under the radar winner. Marianne, not under the radar character-wise, but threat level-wise for sure. I mean, a lot of people thought even Mike deserved the win over her. Lindsay apparently was a bigger threat to win than her. And then Omar easily beats Marianne at the end. So, we see that. But I think Carla winning, I'm not ruling it out. I think Carla is someone who maybe she wins and they're just still giving her. They're not trying to hide anything. The editors maybe are just not trying to hide anything. But yeah, a lot of people read into the edit and they think, oh, it's just too obvious. That's why they can't win. Maybe we'll get the obvious winner. Okay, Marianne was a pretty obvious winner after the premiere, but people thought based off of her personality that there was just no way. When you look at the premiere and you listen to things that she was saying and how consistent she was in the edit, her winning makes 100% sense. But her character blinded you the entire season into thinking Omar would win. So maybe this time around, we're seeing a similar situation to last time, except with a maybe more normalized winner character-wise than Marianne was, and it is going to be a more obvious winner. Because Survivor 41 was a unique situation. Survivor 40, Tony winning was really obvious after Sophie was blindsided. Tommy winning, really obvious. Even earlier than, like after Molly was voted out, I thought Tommy would, like, Edgic-wise, have the best chance of winning. So, we see it. Chris Underwood was obviously a massive outlier, but there's certain traits that certain winners have, and I think Carla and Jesse just seem a little bit too obvious at this point to be the winners, which is why I do think ultimately Cassidy or Sammy is probably going to pull it out. James, I'll talk a little bit about him. So James, very good episode. He had a very strong episode. Him and Carla were kind of in the middle again. So I think positioning-wise, we're seeing James as in a good position. But we're seeing Carla as the player. And maybe this is going to be an ooh-ah situation where Shan gets so much more credit in the edit than Ricard did, even though Ricard had equal say about everything. I mean, a lot of people were saying how Ricard had a lot more control over Shan than the edit made it look. But at the same time, though, there was quite a few people in that Uad tribe that kind of wanted Ricard gone, like, much earlier on, and Shan's relationship with them, as well as with Ricard, was ultimately what kept him in the game. But what all that I'm saying is, it's possible that Carla could go home in this, like, big blindside at, like, Final 8, and then James is able to, rebound from that and play a much better game. However, I don't see it. Most people like James that have a chance of winning or make it far, not necessarily as GOATs, but just as people that ultimately inevitably won't win the game, would just have a little bit more content. I feel like his archetype and the way how he's playing, wouldn't he get more screen time if he was going to make it a lot further in the game? I mean, I just think, honestly, he's probably going to go home earlier on in the merge, because I don't know why the editors are just totally underselling him. I mean, they're telling us his story about how him and Carla are in the middle, but they're not hyping him up in any specific way that's, like, making us specifically root for him. So I just don't see James having a ton of success within the game. I'm just being real. Next up, we have Janine. I'll talk about her. So Janine, she found that idol. Really underwhelming idol find. It's like, we just didn't care. They didn't devote a ton of time into it, into showing it in the edit. So I think she's probably just going to go home with it in her pocket. They didn't really hype it up. I don't know. Pretty early merge boot, like final 9-ish. That sounds like a realistic around the point 10, 8. Like, she could go home around that range based on what we're seeing. That's just how I see it. Gio is the last person I'll talk about because he just got voted out, and then I'll wrap things up here. So Gio, yeah, he got that really long 2.5-minute confessional earlier on. He didn't get a ton of confessionals this season, but we kind of saw him seem a bit arrogant. He didn't really understand his positioning. He mistakenly felt like he had people on his side, and he ultimately just didn't build the social. He was more of a confident individual than a social individual, and unfortunately that can sometimes bite you in the butt in this game. So it ultimately sent him home, and now he's voted out right before the merge. It's disappointing. I feel bad for him. He really felt confident. He got totally blindsided, and his dream crushed just like that. But oh well, what can you do? He tried his best. He did what he felt made sense in the moment, and it just didn't work out for him. So that's it for everything that I'm going to say about this episode. Next episode, we have Mergatory at final 13 instead of 12 this time. I don't know what that means. I think, this is my prediction, totally random. I think we're going to have, what's going to happen? 3 people are going to randomly go on a summit. The other 10 are going to be divided into 2 groups of 5. And then they're going to each compete for individual immunity. And then 1 person on each group is going to get voted out. And then the rest all go together as the final 11. And they are the merge and they are the jury. That's my grand prediction. It's going to be Mergatory without the hourglass twist, with probably some little minute tweaks, because you have to change the twist quite a bit in order for to do it without the hourglass twist, as well as doing it at 13 instead of 12. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do, because I mean 13 is a prime number, so you can't split people that way. So I'm just wondering, like, how they're going to do that. I'm very curious about that. So I guess we'll see. I think that this pre-merge was not super eventful, but I think that with a shorter pre-merge, with 3 tribes of 6, and there not being a lot of game that's being able to open up, where you have these summits where people are building these cross-tribe connections. But with tribes being so small, you're not really getting to see the core of all of the relationships. So once merge hits, the game opens up a little bit more, and it usually tends to get a little bit more interesting. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. I don't really know what to expect from this merge episode. My predictions, I think 2 people are going to get voted out. I think they're going to be Noelle and Ryan. Totally random. That would be my guess, but we'll see what happens in the episode. So with that being said, I will close things off here. I'm JPB Productions. Thank you for listening. Or watching. Same thing.